Friday, April 12th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This morning I'm going to talk about how peace, gold, prosperity are all synonymous, and how America will only be great again when it goes back to sound money, sound finances. And to look into the subject, I'm going to go through the introduction of this book that I just bought. I haven't finished reading this book, but there's a really interesting part in the introduction about the subject of this video. So the book is War and Gold, a 500-year history of empires, adventures, and debt by XgCTCWb. XgCTCWb is actually a member of parliament in the UK. He's a conservative member of parliament. I bought this book just a few days ago. I went out with my daughter. We like going to the bookstores, Waterstones here in the UK. She bought a book and I bought this one. So before that, of course, I'll look at what the markets are doing. It's 7:32 a.m. London time. So yesterday was a quiet day overall, as you know, from what I saw in the stock market and currency market. Of course, gold and silver were hit hard. I think it's just noise. I'm not sure there is a reason for it. Am I concerned? No. I'll show you again the chart I showed you yesterday or the day before about gold and this falling wedge. We're still in the falling wedge. Just looks like we're going to stay in it for a while. And I've also realized that's the beauty of technical analysis, that it looks like we're forming a teacup and handle formation, which is usually a bottom. So you can see the teacup is formed from the move last year in gold, and now we're forming the handle here. And once it breaks above the top line in the handle, it goes up. It should go up the distance from the bottom of the teacup to the, a perpendicular line to the top of the teacup. So that would be around $200 from 1160 to 1360 or thereabouts. So let's say 1320 plus 200, that's 1520. Not sure, that's the time frame there is difficult to say. Does that mean it's going to happen? Am I saying, oh, gold's going to 1520, we have a teacup and handle? No, it's a probability. Anyway, gold and silver are not to be just thought of as trading, but as monetary insurance against monetary mayhem. And you'll see why when I go through the introduction of this book. Is a really interesting fact in here. So let's see where we are today. Oh yeah, and silver, before I go into the prices, silver as well, you can see here, is hugging this this line that it's broken out of at the moment. So that's the technical picture for silver. So right now, 735, spot gold is 1294, up $1.50. Range has been 1291 to 1295. Silver is just trading at $15, so up about 4 cents. Range has been 1494 to 1502. The stock markets, yesterday I just had a look here. It was a very quiet day. The Dow was down 14. S&P was actually unchanged, and the NASDAQ composite was down 17. So not much really activity. As I said, right now the Dow futures up 41, 26,180. The S&P is at 2890, up 3. NASDAQ 100 is at 7,600, up about 6. The pound is up 10 pips or 0.08%, 130.65. Very stable at the moment, considering what the ups and downs we've had in the last few months because of the Brexit situation. It looks like they're delaying Brexit for another 6 months. I think there's going to be a heavy price to pay for the establishment in this country by what they're doing. There will be a cost. They're betraying, I think, the what 17.4 million people voted for, which was to leave. And Article 50 says if you don't get a deal by March 29th, 2019, you leave with no deal. And that's the betrayal there. Euro 112.86, up 1/3%. So the euro is fairly strong this morning. Dollar is up 0.15% against the yen, 111.82. And the Chinese yuan is very stable. It's the dollar is unchanged, 672.20. Oil, WTI is just below 64. It's up 0.4% at 63.93. And Brent is at 70.91, up 1/3%. Brent crude oil. Bond markets, looks like yields have yields have gone up a little bit since yesterday morning when I made my video. We're just below 250. I think we're around 247. The 10-year yield. The curve, the 3-month is at 242. The 7-year is at 240. So that's also kind of steepened a little bit, that curve. Still inverted by a couple of basis points though. So Quasi-Kwarteng, so he's an interesting guy here. His gold, by the way, and I had heard about this book. Some reason I didn't buy it. Some of you actually have mentioned this book in the comment box, and I was actually looking for another book yesterday. I couldn't find it, and I saw this one. I said, well, I'll buy this one. So he was born in the UK to parents who migrated from Ghana as students in the 1960s. Kwarteng attended Eton College as a King's Scholar and Newcastle Scholar before going to the University of Cambridge, where he read classics and history at Trinity College, Cambridge. He was a member of the team which won University Challenge in 1995. University Challenge is like a TV show where universities they compete with each other about topics, and they have to answer the right questions. It's quite interesting. He attended Harvard University on a Kennedy Scholarship, then earned a PhD in economic history from the University of Cambridge. So interesting guy. He's still an MP. Parliamentary Undersecretary of State for exiting the European Union. He's considered a rising star on the right of the party. All right. So, yeah, I haven't finished reading the book, of course, but I was going through the introduction, and I'm going to go through this part here, and I thought it was quite stunning what he wrote about. And the interesting thing about the book, though, is that Kwarteng goes out of his way, though, to say that he's not advocating for a return to the gold standard. That this is just a historical book. He just wants to cover the history, and that's his prerogative, I guess. But so I'll go to page 6 in the introduction, and I quote. Warren Gold does not advocate a return to the gold standard of the pre-1914 era. It simply tries to tell the story of some of the monetary developments which have shaped government in the last 500 years. It would be wrong, though, at this point not to mention that the conduct of British public finance in the century between the defeat of Napoleon in 1815 and the outbreak of the First World War in 1914 was one of the most remarkable fiscal performances of any government. Yeah, and this was the period where Britain ruled the world. A quarter of the world, I think, was under British control. The sun never set on the British Empire. Of course, there are a lot of criticisms about what the British did. but this is not gonna, I'm not, covering this here. I'm talking more about what Mr. Kwarteng is talking about. So, so he goes on to say, this, of course, was the era of the gold standard. What was remarkable was that in 1818, Britain's nominal debt, national debt, stood at 843 million. And in 1914, the nominal figure was actually lower at 706 million. So that almost 100 years, and the national debt actually went down in Britain. So it just goes to show that to run an empire, you don't need not only to run an empire, but to for an economy to grow, as the British economy did during the Industrial Revolution, 19th century. You don't need ever increasing debt like we're doing today. The 1818 figure represented approximately 250% of GDP. Yeah, that was huge. Well, that was just after a major war where they suspended gold convertibility during the Napoleonic Wars, but they reinstated it after the end of the war. Whereas the 1914 figure was barely 25%. So you had no inflation, because I've done videos in the past, and you can even go inflation calculator for UK, and you will see that you would get the same amount of goods for £1, or maybe even a bit more in 1914 than you did in 1800. So you had an era of zero inflation, huge economic growth and development, and yeah, with no debt. So by 1914, the debt had gone down, and the economy grew massively, because that debt was only 25% of GDP. And he goes on to say, this was a substantial achievement, perhaps unequaled in the history of public finance over so long a stretch of time. It is striking that this achievement was built upon the basis of a gold currency and balanced budgets. And then he goes on to quote Niall Ferguson in the book called The Cash Nexus. So this is a quote in the introduction. Between 1816 and 1899, the UK government ran a deficit in excess of 1% of GNP in only 4 years. So there you go. In an almost 83-year period, they only ran a budget deficit in 4 years, and it was only in excess of 1%. That was Niall Ferguson. And then he goes on to say, as A.J.P. Taylor remarked, the origins of the Second World War, people reared in the stable economic world of the later 19th century simply assumed that a country could not flourish without a balanced budget and a gold currency. Together with the Bank of England, the British Treasury, situated in Whitehall, was the physical embodiment of the doctrine of sound money and balanced budgets. So there you go. This makes me think that maybe the end of the American Empire, and that term is not used very much, American Empire, could be closer than we think. I mean, Britain was running balanced budgets up until the beginning of the First World War. The U.S. has been running, has been a paragon of fiscal recklessness for over 50 years. So I don't think this can go on for much longer. Of course, the key to this, I think, is other countries' acceptance of the dollar as a reserve currency. And I think we all know that that's getting more precarious, in my opinion. And the petrodollar is one of the keys to that, and we'll have to keep an eye on it. So Yeah, I haven't finished this book, but it looks very interesting. War and Gold. I can't recommend it yet because I haven't finished, but it looks like a good one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, or at least think about it. I make a video every day. Don't forget to hit that little notification bell here to be notified of my new videos. Share my video far and wide if you think other people could be interested in the subjects I cover. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.